Okay, so for today's lecture topic, we will be talking about the cardiovascular system. Okay, so last topic previously, we basically talked about the nervous system, wherein we characterized and learned about the structure and organization of the different tissues that comprise basically your brain, your spinal cord for the central nervous system, and the ganglia and the nerve trunk fibers for your peripheral nervous system. And we said that the nervous system is a very important organ system for the body because without it, almost all of the other organ system cannot function because there is nothing to control them. Okay, this time around, we will be moving on to another one of my favorite organ systems. Maybe for the majority of you, you are really very careful with this organ system. So yes, for today, cardiovascular system is our topic. And of course, when you think about the cardiovascular system, the main organ that you're thinking about would be your heart, of course, because it is the pump that basically generates the impulse or the pulse of the blood flow throughout the body. And of course, um, if you have the pump which moves along the blood along throughout the body to bring nutrients and oxygens and other metabolites throughout all the parts of the body and all the viscera within the body, then you would have the plumbing system, the hose or the tubes that would bring this blood throughout. So you have the pump, the pump, and then you would also have the tubes that will bring it out. So you have the heart and the blood vessels. Okay, so they are two integral components of the cardiovascular. Okay, so for the cardiovascular system, which are the four major types of tissue that comprises the components of your cardiovascular system. Of course, as we all know, since the heart is a very muscular organ, so we all know that because its main function is to just beat and contract and relax and contract and relax forever until the animal is alive, right? Then you would need the presence of a tissue that does just that. Okay, so you would have your muscles tissue, specifically your cardiac muscle tissue, right? And of course, it's not enough that you have your muscle tissue, especially for the tubes, which we little bit talked about already in the previous lectures. We also have with your plumbing, you have your what? You have your opening or your lumen inside it. And then if you have a lumen or an opening, we say that a specific tissue should be found near it. That would be your, yes, your epithelial tissue. The epithelial tissue of the cardiovascular system is very, very important because it's the one that would regulate the integrity of the plumbing system, which would carry the blood that is being pumped out by the heart. Okay? What else? Yes, by now you would have already realized that almost all of the organ system would require the presence of a connective tissue because this connective tissue is very good in organizing, in protecting, in supporting the different organs and their different layers and subparts. Okay, so let's see, in the cardiovascular system you would have the same connective tissue structure, the same connective tissue type, but you will realize that, oh, since this is a different organ system now, we will have a different name again for it. Okay? And finally, we also have your nervous tissue. Yes, because as we all know, uh, the heart or the muscle system of the cardiovascular system is able to contract intrinsically by itself. It has the ability to contract, but it needs another tissue or another organ system that would modulate or control the way how it contracts. Should it contract forcefully or should it contract just a little bit or no contraction at all? Just keep the diameter of this specific plumbing or vessel contracted for long periods of time or keep it dilated, etc. So that is the function of the nervous tissue component of your cardiovascular system. Okay? All right. So as we said earlier, our cardiovascular system is a tubular type of architecture classification for your organs. Okay? Actually, in essence, think of all the components of the cardiovascular system as a continuous loop of tubes, complicated tubes that has been bent and distributed all throughout the body and embedded into the nooks and crannies of your organs as well as your appendages, limbs, wherever there is a tissue that needs to be nourished and needs to get nutrients, etc. Okay, then even the heart is basically just a continuation of this tube-like structure, but the main difference is the walls became very thick, and some muscle layers has become thicker on one end and has a specialized function. But technically, it's just one continuous tube system with the same architecture or plan throughout in terms of its the architecture of its wall layers. Okay, anyway, later we will be talking more about this. Okay, as I said earlier, the basic function of the cardiovascular system is to transport blood. Of course, blood has already been discussed in detail where last semester in Beta 105. Remember, it's one of your specialized connective tissue, and we learned about blood and we learned about the individual specific cells that comprise it and their function. So please do not forget that, okay? This time around, in this topic, we are talking about the system which carries it and allows it to be transported all throughout the body. And then, as I said earlier, nutrients and gases. Of course, gases, of course, there will be the exchange of the oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout the body, wherein the main idea is that for the organs to function, they should be oxygenated, and after using the oxygen, the organs and other parts of the body would be expelling out carbon dioxide. Okay? And of course, other waste products as well, metabolites. Okay? And hormones. So for these waste products and hormones later, we will learn that there are actually specific organs that their main function or their main expertise is to excrete these waste products. And we will realize later on, later in the SEM, that these organs are just technically composed of very small, complicated, compact blood vessels. Okay? And that the organs that produce these hormones would need the presence of very small and high amount of blood vessels as well. Basically, any organ or any part of the body that needs to do something with blood would have to have the presence of your blood vessels. Okay? All right, let's go to the development of the cardiovascular system. Specifically for this slide would be your heart. Okay, so basically your heart develops in the cardiogenic area. Okay, of course, you would have a very detailed version of this development of the cardiovascular system in your course manual. So please read that carefully. In the purpose of this lecture, we will just go through it uh, through the important points quickly. All right. So first, there is the formation of two endocardial tubes, and then these two tubes will fuse into the middle, usually from the cranial part to the caudal part. And then there will be the formation of, again, just like in the brain ventricles, there will be the formation of bulges. And then these bulges would have different names, and then these bulges will eventually twist onto itself, giving rise to the different compartments of the heart. What I want you to appreciate here is that since there's a very intricate steps in the formation of the heart, um, there's a lot of areas wherein something could go wrong. Thus, there is a lot of abnormalities within the development of the heart. Okay? If there's a failure to fuse, if the failure to twist in the right place. Okay? So, the key point is that um, the blood flow of the embryo is the opposite of the blood flow of an actual uh, an animal that has been given birth to, or an animal that is not already connected to the placenta. The key point here, guys, is that when an animal is still connected to placenta or to its mother, it will be the placenta that will serve as the lungs. Okay, and the main goal of the fetus is to, of course, it's already developing its own lungs, and it's also developing other its other organ systems. The goal of the fetus is to just survive and grow, and it's still not using its lungs, so there's a lot of structures in its heart system or in its lung system, which would actually bypass the blood flow going to the actual organs, because the fetus is still, or the embryo is not using it yet. So there are your what we call shunts. Okay, so those are very important. So these shunts, they work so that the blood coming from the mother will not have to go yet into the lungs or into the liver. And then the problem is when the animal grows old and supposedly detaches from the mom, these shunts or shortcuts should be cut, okay, because they're not needed anymore. But sometimes they would persist, and this would lead to abnormalities in the adult animal, okay, or in the non-embryonic animal. Okay, so here you would see that you have your vitelline vein and your arteries. But if if you would uh, think about it, the veins and the arteries, they are usually named based on uh, the type of blood that it carries. If it carries blood away from the heart, then it is your artery. If it carries blood towards your heart, it is your vein. And it does not matter if that blood is actually oxygenated or deoxygenated. What matters is the directionality. Okay, so this directionality may flip depending on at which stage of the animal you are looking at, right? So here you can see that the heart system basically develops in the ventral thoracic area of the animal, and there's also the development of your aortic arches. And in the 72-hour embryo, it is very cute because here you can see the initial stages of the formation of your heart, and you can see it's basically just one tube that twisted itself, right? And thus eventually forming the initial stages of your heart compartments. Okay, so I hope you take the time to review the embryos that you have already seen in the first meeting. Okay, so the cardiovascular system is basically composed of it needs to distribute first your blood and then your lymph. Okay, so apparently it's not only the blood. When we're talking about the cardiovascular system, you would also have your lymph or your lymphatics. Okay, and within the blood system, the main pumping organ would be your heart, and your plumbing or the hose or the distributors would be your vessels. And then for the heart, it is composed of three layers as with your vessels. For the heart, the name of these three layers is quite different. You would have from the outside to the inside layer, you had your epi, myo, endo, cardio. And for the vessels, you have several types. You have your artery. Again, your artery carries oxygenated blood away from the heart. You have different types under your arteries. You have your elastic, muscular, and your the smallest version of your artery, your arterial. So this is the smallest version before it turns into your capillary. So your capillary, this is where blood exchange happens. This is the only type of vessel wherein actual exchange happens. Okay, so far for the other types of artery, there is no exchange. It's just a conduit. It's just a passageway. Okay, for the capillary, you have several types as well. You have your continuous, your fenestrated, and your sinusoidal. So these names basically describe the walls of that capillaries, and it will give you an idea of what is their purpose, and if they are located in a specific organ, what that organ does, okay, with the blood that it is carrying or handling within it. Okay, and of course, we have our vein, which carries the oxygenated blood, and its goal is to bring it to the lungs for oxygenation. Okay, bring it to the heart, and then for pumping into the lungs. So again, just like your artery, it would have your what's this? Your small, big, medium, and small. But if you can see here, from the heart, you have the big, medium, small, and very, very small capillaries. And then in the vein, you have the small vein, medium vein, and large vein. And here, I want you to master this slide. Okay? Here, you can see that um, your arterioles correspond with your small vein, your muscular artery corresponds with your medium vein, and your elastic artery corresponds with your large vein. Okay? And here I wrote it in such a way that follows the route of the blood from the heart to the different sizes of the artery, to the exchange area, and again to the different sizes of vein before it goes back to the heart and into the lungs, etc. Okay? For the lymphatic system, you will also have your vessels, you will also have your capillaries, small and medium and large lymphatic vessels. Later, we will see that almost not almost all of these structures within your cardiovascular system is basically tube-like in structure, and they are basically following the same three layers structure. It's just that in the different categories, you would have the different thickness of each specific layer, or there may be the loss of some layers in the quest to simplify specific structures, such as those in the very small versions of your plumbing or tubings. Okay? Okay, first let's talk about the vessels. For the blood vessels, this is what we're talking about earlier. So basically, you have your large versions, your mid-sized versions, your smallest versions. All of these are just your plumbing, and they function to conduct blood, because finally both these different types, your veins and your arteries, will meet via your capillary bed system. And it is here in your capillaries where the actual exchange happens. And this is the capillary system. These are the ones that is actually embedded in your organ systems and parts of your body. And these blood vessels are the actual ones that would deliver the blood nutrients, oxygen, hormones, and also bring extract the metabolites or waste products away from the organ as well. Okay, so as we said earlier, the names of the architecture of the walls of these blood vessels, as you will see in the first word that describes them, you would have the term tunica. So what does tunica mean? Tunica actually is an old name for like a dress shirt or garment, okay? So of course, the Western people who first described the blood vessels, they said that, oh, these are like t-shirts that has been worn one after the another. So layers or tunics, okay? So first, you would have from the outside to the inside, or rather, let's start from the inside, okay? So you have your tunica intima, the layer of the blood vessel wall that is very intimate or closely, directly uh, in contact, quote unquote, with the blood. Okay? So you have the tunica intima, and among the different layers of the walls of the blood vessels, it is the tunica intima that is always present. Okay? Next, for the tunica intima, next to it would be your tunica media, or the middle tunic, or the middle t-shirt. Okay? Middle layer. So the tunica media is interesting because if you are looking at members of your arteries, you would see that the tunica media is composed of smooth muscle cells, and it is the thickest layer. Okay? While in the vein system, it's not the thickest layer. Okay? Because the thickest layer for the vein system is the tunica externa or adventitia. In some references, no, they would refer to this as tunica adventitia. So tunica adventitia or tunica externa is the same banana. Okay? Some especially for anatomists, physiologists, they like using externa because it's like the external layer. For pathologists, histologists, they like to call it as adventitia or the additional layer. But in the end, they're the same banana. Okay? So again, tunica externa or adventitia is basically your loose connective tissue which serves to anchor this plumbing system to the different parts of the body where these blood vessels are found. So most probably, if you are doing your dissection of your cadavers in your gross anatomy classes, you would have been firstly in contact with the tunica externa or adventitia. Okay, thickest layer in the vein system, tunica adventitia or externa. Thickest layer in the artery system would be your tunica media. It makes sense because if we will analyze it, the blood that is flowing through your arteries has a very high pressure, and it even has a pulsatile pumping blood flow, right? Because it is very directly connected to the strong muscles of your ventricle. Okay, and of course, the goal of your artery is to spread out the oxygenated blood throughout the body. Imagine from the heart the flow of the blood should be able to go into the ends of your tips, of your fingertips, for the animals, for their toes, their paws, right? Can you imagine the amount of a pressure that it needs for it to travel such great distances? And so that this pressure will be maintained, there is a need for very strong walls that are able to adapt to it. Okay? While for the veins, there is no requirement for this pressure. Okay? So that's why the walls are thinner, and their main goal is to just allow the passive flow or the more controlled flow of blood back into the heart, okay, for oxygenation. All right. So here you can see, as what I said earlier, the artery would have a thicker tunica media, the vein would have a thinner, while for the adventitia or externa is just thicker for the vein. And as you can see, if in the arterial walls, it is the function of the smooth muscles in the tunica media to control and maintain the diameter of the vessel. In the vein, it is not the main function of the muscles, smooth muscles in the tunica media. Instead, usually, it is the function of the smooth muscles embedded into the tunica externa. So in the photo below, you can see that another usual description, but not always, okay, would be that the artery is able to maintain, due to its thick muscular wall, it is able to maintain its circular structure in histological preparations, while for the vein, which usually has a thinner wall and thinner muscle layer and but thicker adventitial layer, it is usually collapsed, and between the two, it is the one that you will usually see remnant or remaining RBCs within it. Okay, but this is not always the case. Sometimes for big arteries, it can also be collapsed. So this is very important. You should always assess the layers of the wall instead of the shape of the vessel. Okay, good. So here, I want you to appreciate that you would have your large vessels, and then you would have your medium sized, and then the smallest ones. Okay, so all of these are the plumbing systems, and you can see if it is large in the vein system, it's called your large vein. But in your artery system is called your elastic artery. So if you will see the artery system, the name of it is not based on its size. It's based on the major component of the middle layer, right? So in the middle layer or the tunica media of your elastic artery or the biggest arteries, you would have the presence of grossly. What's an example of your elastic artery? Your aorta. And grossly, this aorta is colored what? Yellow, right? So this yellow color we said earlier, if the gross color of a tissue is yellow, specifically for your connective tissue, most likely there is the presence of which fiber? Yes, your elastic fiber. So the elastic fibers are present, interspersed, a lot of it in the tunica media of your large arteries. That's why it's called your elastic arteries. While it is not as much in the muscular arteries. So your muscular arteries, these are the arteries that you have been dissecting and naming in your gross anatomy. So usually the named arteries that is spread throughout the body, in the arms, the legs, even in the cavities. These would be your muscular arteries or the middle-sized arteries. And of course, the capillaries, they won't have actual names unless the organ is very specialized. Okay? Okay, so that's what I said earlier. So here in the schematic diagram, please appreciate that this is not to scale. As you can see, the arteriole is big here, but actually because it is zoomed in, you will see that in the arteriole, there is just 1 to 2 layers of smooth muscle cells as opposed to your muscular and elastic arteries. Okay, again, there is the presence of a lot of elastic fibers throughout the thickness of your tunica media. And again, as we said earlier, we are only able to visualize this elastic fibers within the tunica media of your elastic vessels if they are stained using a special stain. But don't worry because we have a lot of very good special stain slides in the laboratory. So please make sure that you are able to examine them and differentiate your elastic artery from your muscular artery and from your arterioles. Okay? So for the elastic artery, you will see that it has a lot of elastic fibers from here to here. So again, you would have your tunica intima. Your tunica intima is basically composed of your epithelium layer called your endothelial layer for when we are talking of in the context of the blood vessels. And then you have your subendothelial layer, a loose connective tissue. And then finally, you have your tunica media from here to here, your smooth muscle layer interspersed with a lot of elastic fibers. And finally, you have your relatively thin tunica adventitia. So guys, the tunica adventitia usually it's not just a covering and it's not just an anchor, but it also usually contains the small blood vessels and the small nerves that would function to nourish and control the blood vessels, especially if they are the big ones. Okay, so they even if they are blood vessels themselves, they would also need nourishment from the blood. Okay, and they would also need the provision of control from the nervous system. So the blood vessels and the nerve of your blood vessels are called your vasa vasorum and nervi vasorum. Okay, so in the laboratory, try to look for these structures in the tunica adventitia of your vessels. Right? Again, here is an elastic artery. So usually this would be, I think in the laboratory, they would be labeled as your aorta. Okay? Again, you have your elastic fibers here. Smooth muscles, collagen. In the tunica adventitia, you can see the vasa vasora. Vasa vasora, vasa vasorum. Okay? Muscular, middle-sized artery, not as much of your elastic fibers in the middle part. But here, since there is no conspicuous um, presence of a lot of elastic fibers, you are able to see the internal elastic laminae, and in some preparations you will be also able to see in the more part bigger versions of your muscular uh, vessels artery, you would have also your external elastic laminae. So again, when you are viewing slides in the laboratory, know that again it is not binary, okay, because your blood vessels are continuous, so it is very normal that you would see the in-betweens between this elastic muscular and arterial and even capillary type, okay, because they are continuous with one another. What's important is that you recognize the differences in their wall components, and also please be very mindful, especially we are veterinarians, and it's very possible in the future that you would be looking at blood vessels of different animals. Of course, the bigger the animal, the bigger its arterioles can be, right? Or the smaller the animal, the smaller its elastic arteries are, right? So be very mindful of that, okay? So what's important is that you are examining the actual um, structural components of the wall and do not depend on its size, okay? So here is an example of a muscular artery. As I said earlier, since there's no presence of the numerous elastic fibers within the tunica media, the tunica the elastic internal elastic lamina and the external elastic lamina is very defined, okay, given that the slide is stained using a special stain to visualize its elastic fibers, okay. And as they said, a characteristic feature of your muscular artery would be the presence of your wavy scrunched up elastic lamina. So they reference, say, or claim that this wavy appearance of your internal elastic lamina is just a histological artifact because during the processing of your blood vessels in the preparation of the tissue slide, the muscle layer would contract, okay, like a scrunchie, giving rise to a wavy appearance of this elastic lamina. But in reality, it should just be straight because in reality, it is not contracted and it is full of blood. Okay? Then we go to the smallest version of your artery, which is your arteriole. And basically, it just contains a very thin layer of tunica media. And then, also, it still has your adventitia. Okay, so you have your tunica intima, elastica interna, media, and your adventitia. You will know that it's still an arteriole because when you look at it, you're still able to see more than one RBCs can fit within it. And if there's only one RBC that can fit squarely across the lumen, then it will be your capillary. Okay? Here you can see there's still the presence of your one to several layers of your smooth muscle layers in your tunica media. Okay, so here you can see your arteriole and its counterpart on the vein system would be your venule. Okay, again, in the middle of the connection of arteriole and venule, it's not in here, would be your capillaries. Okay. But of course, know that sometimes there is a direct connection in between your arteriole and venule, the shunt system. That would be your meta-arterioles, okay? And these meta-arterioles, they function in specific areas of the body that needs a very, very quick shunting of blood away or a quick shunting of blood into the organ, okay? Okay, for the capillaries, again, this is very special because it is here in the capillaries where the main function of transport of nutrients, gases, metabolites, etc. is being done, okay? Earlier, all the structures that we have been talking about, they're just a conduit system, okay? Their function is just for the transport of blood, okay? So here, these capillary beds, these are the ones that are actually embedded within the body system, the viscera, etc. Okay, and they are so small, that's why you are not able to individually dissect them during your gross anatomy sessions, right? But still the capillaries are in there, and usually you just appreciate it where in microscopic anatomy. So later, all throughout the semester, when you are viewing slides of other organ system, be very vigilant if you see a blood vessel embedded within the parenchyma or the stroma of that organ. Most likely it will be your either your venial arteriole or your capillary. Okay? Okay, so since the capillary is the most important functional part of this plumbing system or your blood vessels, it has different subtypes because this capillary system can actually be found in varying organs of the body, varying parts of the body, which would have different morphologies because they serve different purposes as well. For example, for majority, or this is like the quote-unquote default version of your capillaries, in parts of the body that only just needs nourishments and have no special function in providing nutrients or removing waste products or providing hormones to the blood, the type of the type of capillaries that is embedded in that system would be just your continuous capillary, wherein the purpose is just the diffusion of the oxygen from within to the out to the organ system. So example, musculoskeletal, the brain. So in the brain, we told earlier that we have the blood-brain barrier system, right? Wherein the goal is that the possible noxious substances in the blood should not be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. As such, we need a continuous um, wall, both the basement membrane and the endothelial layer. Again, guys, for the capillary, there is no more tunica media or tunica adventitia or externa. What's remaining is just the tunica intima. So again, the tunica intima is an epithelial layer that is simple, one layer, squamous, flat shape of cell. Simple squamous layer epithelium. Okay? And because if we are talking about again in the context of the cardiovascular system or the blood vessel, the name from that epithelial tissue is your endothelial layer. Okay? And it is found in the tunica intima. Okay? Here, you will see that the endothelial cells of your continuous type is very tightly opposed to one another, and the basement membrane is continuous. This is in contrast with your fenestrated and sinusoidal, wherein the endothelial layer in the fenestrated would have perforations or small holes or fenestrations, which would have, as we will see earlier, so this is the continuous type, okay? You see here you have your endothelium, and this is the pericapillary space, and the substances will move from within or outside of the blood vessel through the endocytosis and exocytosis. Okay? While for the fenestrated type, there are actually holes with membranes covering it here, here, in this type of capillary, because the purpose of the organs which contain your fenestrated capillaries would be the selective transport of some substances. For example, this is a very good example of organ that has mixed use of this fenestrated. In some references, they would have a subclassification named as your porous capillary. So they in our for the purpose of our class, we can just combine the two. Fenestrated and porous is the same banana, and usually they are seen in the glomerulus, the capillaries that make up your glomerulus, which is what? A part of your nephron, which is the building block of your kidney. Yes, we will be talking about this more in detail when we go to the urinary system. But for now, we have to appreciate that the kidney apparently is able to serve its function because the capillaries that make up its smallest unit of function is fenestrated. It is able to freely allow metabolites to pass through, but it is able to keep bigger proteins inside or outside or where they should be. Okay? It does not allow the passage of your big proteins. And should it be in the case where, in the physiological context, where the protein is able to pass through the fenestrations, it means it's broken and it's not continuous and there's already a physiological insult or abnormality. Okay? For the last type, we have the sinusoidal type, okay? So the sinusoidal type of capillary is found embedded in your liver, okay? So the sinusoidal type, you would actually have your big holes and gap not only in the endothelial layer but also in the basement membrane, okay? So this is so because it really allows for the entry and exit of big structures and proteins and nutrients, the glycogen, to and from the capillaries into the hepatocyte that is closely abutting this sinusoidal capillaries, right? Because again, the main function of your um, liver is to process uh, substances and also remove toxicities. So it is in charge with bigger molecules. Thus, it needs a more permissive style of uh, layers. Okay. So again, you have your distinct uh, um, discontinuous basement membrane and endothelial layer. And later, when we go to digestive system, specifically the glandular system, wherein we will examine your liver, you would see that this would be your sinusoids in the liver parenchyma. And please come back to this lesson and try to imagine that, these are quite, they are capillaries, but usually they are able to fit more than one RBC row inside it. So that's your exception for the sinusoidal, okay? Because the sinusoidal capillaries basically just conform their diameter to the spaces that has been left out by the rows of the hepatocytes in the parenchyma of your liver. Okay? Okay? So earlier, this is your arteriole. Now, look at the size difference of your capillary. It's so small, and if you would imagine, only one RBC can fit at one time. Okay? And again, here you would have your continuous version in the skin or the musculoskeletal system and as well as in the brain. Okay? These are your continuous type of capillaries. The brain, it's very important to maintain the integrity of the BBB, blood-brain barrier. For the fenestrated, you can see it in the hormone-producing organs such as your pituitary gland. If you zoom in, you will see the blood vessels. They are basically fenestrated capillaries with little holes and with diaphragms with the selective allowance of the transfer of your hormones and other metabolites. Okay, it is also present in the small capillaries in your kidney. Here, specifically in the glomerular capillaries, where the capillaries are very intricately formed into a ball or tuft system. Okay, so here, these are, when you see these are your fenestrated or porous type of capillaries, okay, in the context of blood vessels. Because in the context of, for example, the urinary system or the endocrine system, these specific structures would have different names, okay? But again, you must know that you should be able to practice changing your point of views and the names of the structures depending on which organ system we are talking about. Then for the sinusoidal, these are again your sinusoidal capillaries, and you can see that there is the ability of this type of capillaries to hold more than one RBCs at in any given time point. Okay? Again, these are your hepatocytes and these are your sinusoidal type of capillaries. Okay? And the sinusoidal type of capillaries is not only present in your liver system, it's also present in the blood islands in your hematopoietic type of your tissue, specifically your red bone marrow. Okay? Okay? For the vein, again, it's just the same banana, but instead of the tunica media that is the thickest layer, you would have your tunica adventitia or externa. And the key distinguishing feature of your vein, especially for the medium sized and the large veins, would be the presence of your valves. Okay, so this is so because in the vein, the pressure of the blood is not as much, but especially for the veins that are located in the lower portions of the animal, you would have to have the presence of these valves in order to ensure that the flow of blood is unidirectional and it is just going back into the heart. Okay, so you would expect that for animals that would have long torsos or long necks, it would need the presence of your valves in order to guide the direction of the blood flow. Okay, so these valves are actually just extensions of your endothelial layer or your tunica intima. Okay? So for the venule, the smallest one, again, here you wouldn't even have a lot of layers of smooth muscle. Okay? So venule versus arteriole, and you can see that the arterioles are usually more circular, and it would be the vein component that would be a little bit flattened during the processing of the histological preparation because the walls of your veins or here venules is not as sturdy as your arterioles, and between the two it would be the vein system that will contain your remaining RBCs. Okay? For the medium size, this is usually the one that is seen together with your muscular artery. And in the preparations of your blood vessels, cross sections of your blood vessels, usually there would be 2 to 3 veins with one artery. So it's usual to have several veins uh, together with your artery. So that's the satellite arrangement of your veins and arteries, and together with what other component? Your nerve, right? So this is like the trio that is always seen. And usually, if you have um, a specific named artery, you would have a adjacent, specifically named vein as well and nerve as well. Okay, so this medium vein would actually be the named ones and the ones that you are dissecting in your gross anatomy subjects. And again, please try to see for preparations that have valves in them. Okay, these valves again are your extensions of your tunica intima. Valves are only present in your vein. Okay, well, of course, aside from the heart. And these valves are very important because they allow the unidirectional flow of the blood. And if something goes wrong, if you become older in the future, such that the collagen components of your valves become weak and you cannot control it anymore, then what happens is there will be the backflow of the blood. And in humans, we recognize these as your varicose veins. Okay, so if you have aunties or someone that has these bulging veins. This is so because of the failure of the valves to do their job. Okay, and you will see here that between the artery and the vein, it is the vein that usually is more superficial in nature, and it is the artery that is deeper into the body. Okay, this makes sense because the deeper structures should be protected from outside mechanical forces that may what if an artery becomes severed, what happens? The blood will what spurt out, as you see in the horror movies, right? It's spurting out, it is pulsating, and because the pressure is so high, and it will mean it will really lead to loss of a great amount of blood. While as for the veins, this is usually where you have your just maintenance of low blood pressure, well, relative to the artery of blood. And when we are taking blood from the animal, we are usually collecting from their venous system. Okay, for the large veins, so this part, okay, your vena cavas, you would have, instead of having a lot of elastic supportive materials within the tunica media, the elastic material is seen in the tunica adventitia. The thickest layer is not the tunica media, because we're talking about a vein system now. The thickest layer would be your tunica adventitia, and this is also where several layers of your smooth muscle can be seen. Again, with the large vein system, the smooth muscle is located in the tunica adventitia and not in the tunica media, as opposed to the biggest version of your artery, which is the elastic artery. So be careful, okay? Again, you can see the difference here. Aorta, thick tunica media, muscles here. In the vena cava, the muscle layer, thick muscle layer, is in the tunica externa area or adventitia. Okay, now let's go to the heart. So, for the heart, quite simple. It's basically still the three tunicas, but since we are talking about the heart, it's not called as your tunica intima media and externa anymore. Sorry, tunica endo is tunica intima, major is tunica media, epicardium is like tunica externa or adventitia. But it's the same banana. It's just changed its name because, we are moving on to a different organ in the system. Okay? But they are very congruent with one another. It's just the same banana. Okay, so this is the heart, and the heart wall, basically it's just one complicated tube that twisted, right? So you would have the presence of your atriums and your ventricles. Atriums would usually have a thinner wall, your ventricles would have thicker walls, which makes sense because it is the ventricles that has the purpose and function of squeezing out the blood from inside the heart towards the different areas of the body. And between the right and the left ventricle, it is the function, the left ventricle has a bigger load because its function is to distribute the blood within it to all the other parts of the body. So the distance the blood has to travel is greater than the distance that the blood has to travel from the right ventricle, which is just going to the lungs, right? Quite a shorter travel. As such, the ventricle of the left the muscle of the left ventricle needs to compensate and needs to be thicker. Okay, so we actually have preparations of heart like this longitudinally cut in the laboratory. So I hope you guys will take the time to actually view the slides, especially for the reporters who will be creating the histological videos. Okay, so the heart wall has three layers. Okay, it just changed its name. From the outside, you have your epicardium. The middle layer, you have your myocardium, because it's like basically the muscle layer. And then the inner layer, you have your endocardium. Okay, the epicardium is technically a part of your pericardium structure. Okay, the pericardium is the outer, like the pouch container of the heart. Okay, grossly, it is best appreciated in gross anatomy. So the pericardium structure, or the pouch containing your heart, has two layers. Okay, the serous layer and the fibrous layer. The serous layer has two sublayers. The one that is the most intimately opposed with the myocardium is the epicardium. So it is this one. The epicardium is also considered as the visceral layer of your pericardium, of your serous pericardium. So serous layer, fibrous pericardium. And then this will be your visceral layer. And then there's a pericardial cavity. And you have the parietal layer of the serous pericardium. In preparations, in the slide preparations, usually it is just the epicardium or the visceral layer of the serous pericardium that remains, this part. Okay? So it's kind of like the pia matter covering of the brain, if you would remember in our previous lesson in your nervous system, right? Anyway, the pericardial cavity contains fluid that is produced by the parietal and epicardial layer, and its function is that so there will be a like liquid cushion for the heart so that it can move freely within this sac or pouch during its um, contraction process. Okay, again, this will be the pericardial cavity, and here intimately opposed would be the visceral layer of your serous pericardium, aka your epicardium. And then here, as of this plastic-like thing here, the inner side would be the parietal layer of serous pericardium, and the outer side would be the fibrous pericardium, and it's usually removed already when preparing the heart muscle tissue histologically. Okay, again. And then another um, characteristic feature of your heart wall would be in the presence of your around the endocardial layer would be the presence of your Purkinje fibers. So again, capital P, named after a person. The Purkinje fiber are technically still cardiac muscles, but they are not ordinary or classic type cardiac muscles. They are specialized because they have the ability to start and conduct the pulses of electricity, which would trigger all the other ordinary types of cardiac muscle to contract and relax simultaneously. Okay? So, since they have a very special function, they would have a very special appearance as well. So, usually these Purkinje fibers, I think we have slides which contain these Purkinje fibers, and their appearance is very different from your ordinary cardiac muscles. The cardiac muscles, they are branched, they are striated, they have nuclei in the middle, one or two, right? Remember in our Beta 105 muscle lecture, the Purkinje fibers, they are thick and they would have pale staining cytoplasm because they would carry a lot of glycogen, and this glycogen material throughout the histological processing they would be washed out, leaving a blank space surrounding the nucleus. Also, the myofibrils or the filaments of this cardiac muscle is delegated to the periphery because of that. Thus, you would have your thick, roundish, not as branched versions of your cardiac muscle, your Purkinje fibers. Okay. For the myocardium, again, this is your basic, classical cardiac muscle. They are branched, they are striated, and most importantly, the cardiac muscles are connected to one another through your intercalated discs. These intercalated discs are best appreciated, of course, or only appreciated if you are viewing what? Longitudinally prepared sections of your heart muscle. Because if you try to see this or look for it in your cross section, you will not see it. Okay? So the same principle as with nodes of Ranvier, right? Okay, so don't forget that. Anyway, here you would see your intercalated discs, and their function is to what? To make sure that each specific cardiac muscle will be able to contract at the same time. So they are forming a syncytium. They are like holding hands and they will contract at the same time and relax at the same time. And the failure to do this would mean that the heart will not be able to forcefully expel blood out of its organ. Okay? And then the epicardium that we are talking about earlier is found in the outer layer, and it is the uh, um, visceral layer of your serous pericardium. And then finally, let's go to the lymphatic vessels. Okay, so the lymphatics, usually, you're not thinking about this when you're talking about the cardiovascular system, right? But it's very important because it is the lymphatic system which actually collects the excess fluid that the capillaries cannot handle anymore. And the key difference of your lymphatic system from your cardiovascular plumbing is that it is not continuous, right? Because as you can see, the heart, the vein, and the arteries, it's one continuous loop, right? But for the lymphatic system, you would have your blind ends. Okay, may blind ends siya. Okay? And it is also very distributed throughout areas of the body where there are capillaries. Okay, and its goal is to collect excess fluid and eventually pass through the lymph nodes and other sentinel areas. We will talk about this next meeting about this actual factory areas of your lymphatic system. But for now, we'll focus about its vessels because usually in a one histological slide preparation, you're able to see your arteries, your veins, and these lymphatic vessels. Okay? Anyway, the goals of the lymphatic system is to bring back excess fluid back into the vein, actually. Give it back to the venous system. Okay? And like your venous system, one characteristic feature of your lymphatic vessels would be the presence of your valves. Okay? Here, you can see that it has blind pockets. And the walls of your lymphatic vessels is so simple because its function in life is to just absorb and readily take excess fluid within the tissues. Okay, so it has a very, very simple wall system and it doesn't have a very formed tunica media nor tunica adventitia. Okay, so here you can see that it the it is best appreciated in organs of your lymphatic system, wherein um, aside from the accumulation of the lymph or excess fluid, you would also have the function of producing your immune system related cells, your lymphocytes and other macrophages and stuff like that. Okay, so um, the these lymphatic vessels are best appreciated if you are not able to identify it in the sections of your other organs or skins. It is best appreciated within the lymphatic organs such as your lymph nodes. Okay, so here you can see the lymphatics would have very, very thin walls, and you would have, but still, it would have your very extensive valves. And here it is as compared with your veins and arteries. And usually, in your lymphatic vessels, we do not expect to see RBCs because your lymphatic vessels do not function to carry blood. Okay, but sometimes during abnormalities, there will be the entry of RBCs between inside your lymphatics, but normally no, it should be just pinkish proteinaceous fluid, and that is your lymph. Okay, lymphatic vessels. If you see a vein that has a very boring and very simple wall, and you think that it's a vein because it has valves, most probably it's not even a vein. It is a lymphatic vessel. Okay. So, uh, again, majority, if not all, majority of the components of your cardiovascular vascular system, the heart and the blood vessels inside it, actually comes from your mesoderm layer, while some very specific parts come from your ectodermal layer, specifically, I think, from the neuroectoderm and the neural crest. So the cardiac septa and valves, they come from the ectoderm. Okay, the rest, they come from the middle red colored layer in the references, the mesoderm. Okay, so that's all for the topic today. Do not forget to take the attendance form. Again, if you are somebody from the future, please do not use this. Use the attendance tracker. Okay, this attendance tracker is just for the students of first semester, school year 2026-2027. Okay, and we have an online quiz later at 9 p.m. Quiz number 4. So please do not forget to set your alarms for this one. Okay, and that's all for today's lecture.